Hey everyone, it's Connor back from this old farm, and today we are doing a little bit of a farm update here. We're in the house, and in front of me, and I'll flip the camera around. You can see I have a governor housing. This is the governor housing off of Cushing, that farm out H we got. What was it, 2 years ago now? I think. He's got the wide front. It's the one we haven't used much, and it's the one that has the governor issue, hence why we have the governor off and inside. And I went through, and as we know, we have the issue of it goes full throttle. And you can see I went through and tore it apart here. I pulled out this is, I believe they call it the actuating shaft. It runs through the inside here into this. You can see that hole there. It runs through that hole, which this goes on to, and then there's this tiny, really dinky little key here. Let's see, there he is. A really dinky little key there that rides in the a keyway on the shaft here. Let's see, where is he? There he is. Rides in the keyway, and that holds this little lever on, which is what gives you kind of your throttle motion. This lever in the back here is what actuates the little deal on the, whatever you want, the little tab, the all our throttle linkage. But I discovered kind of an issue here. This shaft, which holds the gear, is on, and it's got two bearings. There's a bearing in the front of the housing, and there's a bearing back here which gets pushed onto the lever. So when your weights fly out, as the thing is spinning super fast, or real fast at full throttle, and when the weights push out, okay, so that bottom one's out already. When it pushes out like that one is, it pushes up against this shaft to try and bring it back down to idle. Well, I discovered before I even pulled out this cross shaft that goes there, I discovered that we have a little bit of an issue. You can see that just slips right out. That should not do that. It should be a press fit in this housing. I should not be able to pull it out in and out by hand. I have not done anything. Prior to working on this, I did not. I haven't. There's no camera magic here, like behind the scenes, like I'm making up the issue here. Is what I've seen, is what I saw when I pulled it apart. That bearing just slid right out of the housing, and it should not. It should be a pretty much pressed and fit. So that's kind of where we're at. What the issue? So now why this poses an issue of it sliding in and out is what happens is when these weights actuate on this little bearing, and the part that gets pushed on by the weights, you can see it moves. When it gets pushed out, what would happen is, instead of when this is at a full throttle, which I can't seem to make it, because it's being difficult here because it's over center. So when this is at full throttle and the lever, what is going on is when these weights kick out, it just pushes this shaft forward in the housing rather than push the bearing back. Oops, that's not what I wanted to have happen. Instead of just pushing the bearing back slightly to push back on this to bring it back down to an idle, or keep it at an idle, or it is just pushing the shaft forward, pretty much disengaging from this and allowing this linkage to just go wide open as it wants to. It's able to just push itself forward and open right up. So that's kind of where we're standing at right here with this governor for Cushing. I really kind of am at a hemming and hawing really for what to do, because it's there you could see what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to pull it back down to idle, which is what that was, instead of what normally would happen, or what's happening now. So I'm holding the lever at wide open. What would happen is the weights would open up. If I can do this with my one, and you can see it just pushes that forward. So what is happening, or what we have to do is we have to decide what we're going to do with it. What we could do is, my friend Cody from the Relics Tractor Club that I'm in, he has a Farmel M that he is parting out, and this housing, now this is a two-piece system here. For those of you that don't know the International Harvester Governors, this is a two-part. There's the upper casting and then the lower casting. The lower casting is the same, from my understanding from my good friend Kenny, is that this lower casting is the same for both the H&M series. It's this upper casting that is different, and I would presume this vertical shaft on the inside as well. So what I could do is I could get Cody's, which is presumably good, and switch out this vertical shaft and this upper casting, and we'd have a good governor again. Another option, what I could do is, they make what they call the company Loctite, which makes a thread lock for, say, nuts, or for bolts and nuts and what have you. They also make a what do you want to call it, Loctite. Well, that's a company, but they make a chemical, we'll call it, that'll lock this bearing in. So I can push this bearing in all the way, let the chemical harden, and it would lock that bearing in. We shouldn't have this slip fit in the housing anymore. Or another option that we could go with, and I'm going to pull this nut off to show you guys here, is we could go through and take, now this is the gasket that goes between the governor and the front cover that the governor mounts to. We could put some shims or a piece of gasket material, or make another gasket that just fits around this and is not very wide, is about as wide as this little piece here, and we could actually put it on the inner side and then stick this on. We could do that to help use the pressure of the bolting it down to the front cover to hold the bearing forward, or backwards, I should say. We don't want it forward, because that's what our issue is. And now I'm not going to be able to get this bolt put in. There he goes. So that's kind of where we're standing right now with what's going on with Cushing. I guess I was wrong on it being a governor spring. It's not the governor spring. It's actually the housing, essentially. The housing and the bearing here that are slip fitting. So there's really no force to me pulling that back and forth. I wouldn't even call it a friction fit. It's not really even that. So sorry about that. I hit the wrong button. But so that's where we're standing at with this governor housing, and what's basically, we found the issue with Cushing as to why keeps wanting to go wide open. It's just now, where do we go from here? Because this is definitely an irregular issue, I guess we could call it, if that's what you want to call it. It's definitely not a common problem, I don't think, anyways. I couldn't imagine it being a common problem, but of course, it's my luck. It's a problem that we have, and something that we're going to have to deal with here. So, we're just kind of, this is probably all I'm going to get done to it tonight, is just having examined it here. I'm not too sure where I'm going to go with it beyond this. I don't really like the idea of kind of band-aiding our issue with, as far as just either doing that Loctite or putting a gasket on the front of the governor housing there. Excuse me. I really don't like that idea. I'd rather have it be a press fit, and in order to do that, I think I would have to source a new bearing out and pull the bearing off of the, pull the gear off the shaft, pull the bearing off the shaft, and then go about putting a new bearing in, which is a bigger outer diameter that will fit, or I guess you could say have the press fit of the inner diameter. The only problem is that this shaft, or that this bearing, has this, you can see that ring around it. It has that ring on it. Oops, doggone it. That silly bearing and thing came off again. Yeah, we'd have to go through and find one that's like that, and I think you'd be pretty much SOL with that. So we might be looking at finding a new governor housing, or getting the new the one that Cody has, which should be in A-OK shape. But that's our findings here with the governor. I just kind of wanted to share that with you guys, that's what I found. And it's really unfortunate because the pins and weights on this, in this governor, are absolutely phenomenal. I mean, if you take a look at Kenny Kisel's governor that he did, he's rebuilt. If you watch his channel, you'll know that he was rebuilding his H, and kind of still is. I mean, he's finishing tin work now at this point. But if you look at his governor rebuild video, his weights are super loose, and mine are incredibly tight, like almost brand new the way they are. So it's really unfortunate that this is the case. I was hoping it'd be something simple, like a broken pin or a linkage getting stuck, but of course it's got to be pretty much the worst of the worst. So, and who knows, we might even be able to salvage this, or we might even be able to use this shaft with the bearing and gear on it in a different housing. It might be just that the housing is messed up and not the bearing, but it could be the bearing is messed up and the housing is fine. It's very hard to say. I would have to do some measurements on the housing and the bearing and compare them to a good housing and bearing, and see which one is truly bad. So anyways, that's where we stand with this. That's what our issue is, and it's just kind of where we go from here. And like I said, I just wanted to share with you guys what my finding was with this governor. So that's where we're at. We're kind of at a standstill with that, as we are with the Super M too, which is just waiting on the head. So anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll talk to y'all next time.